The Buddhist Abbot and the Brahman. While King Kanishka stayed at the summer palace to witness the tiger hunt, a Buddhist abbot came to the royal palace and requested an interview with the great king, Kanishka's friend, and the abbot was admitted into the presence of Charaka, who happened to be in the company of some counselors of King Subahu, among whom was Ashvaghosha, the saintly philosopher. Said the abbot, "I come from the monastery in the hills, situated near a Brahman village south of Benares, and have been sent by the brethren. Venerable monks, whose abbot I am, we know that King Kanishka and you are followers of the Buddha and are steadfast in the Orthodox faith. Therefore we approach you in confidence and hope that you will lend your countenance to us, endeavoring to spread and establish the good law, the pure religion of the Tathagata. We have settled in the hills, but there is a Shiva shrine close by, and the villagers continue to offer gifts to the priests, while the venerable brethren who profess faith in the glorious doctrine of the Buddha are neglected, and sometimes positively suffer from privation." Well, if they can work, why don't they work? But I would agree that the priest maybe shouldn't be getting paid to do religious things. Well, I mean, everything can be religious, but you know what I mean. They should work too. "What can I do about it?" queried Charaka. If the Shiva shrine were removed, the villagers would no longer seek religious comfort through Brahman rites and would turn Buddhists. We are told that you are a Buddhist monk. You will have sympathy with your suffering brethren and help them to expel the unbelievers. "And do you think," objected Ashvaghosha, "that either King Subahu or King Kanishka would lend you his royal authority to interfere with the religious service of anyone? No, my friend, the Shiva worshippers may be mistaken in their religious views, but they seek the truth, and so long as they do not injure their neighbors, their worship cannot be disturbed. And I do not know, but the Shiva priests may, in their own way, do good service to the people." Now, if people want to pay people to lead prayers, that's totally up to them. And mistaken views, personification and maybe some ethics that some people have decided are setting aside some ethics, whatever the deal is. And there was a Brahmin priest, one of King Subahu's counselors, who was pleased with Ashvaghosha's remark and expressed his approval of the principle of toleration, which the great emperor Ashoka had proclaimed in one of his edicts as a maxim of good government. And the Brahmin added, "Do not ye too, O Buddhists, preach the doctrine of the Brahmins, that there is a supreme Lord Creator over all creatures, a divine ego consciousness of all existence. Whether we call God Ishvara or Shiva or Amitabha, he remains the same and has a just claim to worship." Ashvaghosha shook his head. "No, my Brahmin friend, the good law is supreme, and it is a Father omnibenevolent, as we rightly designate it. It is the norm of existence, the standard of truth, the measure of righteousness. But that norm is not an Ishvara, neither Shiva nor Brahma. Here is the difference between Ishvara and Amitabha. Ishvara is deified egotism. He demands worship and praise. Amitabha is love. He is free from the vanity of egoism and is only anxious for his children, that they should avail themselves of the light and shun the darkness, that they should follow his advice and walk in the path of righteousness. Ishvara calls sin what is contrary to his will. He loves to be addressed in prayer, and he delights in listening to the praises of his worshippers. Not so, Amitabha. Amitabha cares not for prayer, is indifferent to worship, cannot be flattered by praise. But the good law is thwarted when his children err. Amitabha appears to be wrapped in sadness by the evil results of their mistakes, not for his sake, for he is eternal and remains the same forevermore. For the sake of sufferings, all the sentient creatures, for all creatures are his disciples. He guides them, he teaches them, he encompasses them. He is like a father unto them. So far as they partake of his nature, they are his children. Well, there's limitations that are put on each of that we can kind of go by beyond that with Amitabha, Ishvara, Shiva. Said the Brahman, I for one do not believe that Ishvara or Brahma or whatever you may call God is a person such as we are. He is a higher kind of personality, which however includes the faculties of perception, judgment, and reason. Now, when they say Bhagavan, that can apply to that too. But again, Bhagavan is not the type of person we are in like persona, part of our. I believe, therefore, that the Buddhist faith is lacking in this, that its devotees think of Amitabha as deficient in self-consciousness. Buddhist ethics are noble, but are human deeds the highest imaginable? Since the Godhead is greater than man, the highest bliss will forever remain a union with Brahma or Ishvara or Sakra, or whatever you may call the great unknown and unknowable, who has revealed himself in the Vedas and is pleased with the prayers and sacrifices of the pious, who express their faith and worship. When I was young, replied Echvagosha, I was a Brahman myself. I believed in Brahma, the supreme being, the creator of and Lord over all the worlds that exist. I know there is much that is good in the Brahman faith, and I did not abandon it because I deemed it bad or injurious. I abandoned it because the doctrine of the Tathagata was superior, all comprehensive, and more profound, for it explains the problems of existence, its whence and whither, and is more helpful. The doctrine of the Tathagata is practical and not in the air, as are the theories and speculations of the Brahmins. You seek a union with Brahma, and what is he? We may dispute his existence, and no one can refute us. He is an idea, a metaphysical assumption, and his mansion is everywhere and nowhere. Thus the Tathagata says that those who believe in Brahma are like a man who should make a staircase where four roads meet to mount up high into a mansion, which he can neither see nor know how it is, and where it is, what it is built of, nor whether it exists at all. The priests claim the authority of the Vedas, and the Vedas are based upon the authority of the authors who wrote them. And these authors rely on the authority of Brahma. They are like a string of blind men, clinging to one another and leading the blind, and their method of salvation consists of adoration, worship, and prayer. It is a doctrine for children, and though the words of their theory are high-sounding, they are not the truth, but a mere shadow of the truth. And in this sense, the Tathagata compared them to the monkey at the lake who tries to catch the moon in the water, mistaking the reflection for the reality. But would not all your arguments, replied the Brahman, if I were to grant them, apply with the same force to Amitabha? What is the difference whether we say Brahma or Amitabha? Both are names for the Absolute. There would be no difference in the names if we understood the same by both. Brahma, the Absolute, is generally interpreted to mean being in general, but Amitabha is enlightenment. We do not hanker after existence, but we worship truth, goodness, and purity. Are, the source thereof, right? By Amitabha, we understand the eternal, infinite light, the spiritual light of comprehension, and this light is a reality. No one doubts that there is a norm of truth and a standard of right and wrong. That is Amitabha. We may not yet know all about Amitabha. Our wisdom is unlimited. Our goodness is not perfect. We ground ourselves upon which we do not know, while you Brahmins start with speculations seeking a union with the absolute, which is a vague idea, something unknown and unknowable. Amitabha is certainly not a limited self-consciousness, but an infinite principle, an omnipresent law, an eternal norm, higher than any individual. But the depth of this norm is unfathomable. Its application is universal and infinite. Its bountiful use immeasurable. We know something, but not all about Amitabha. He is the Dharmakaya, the embodiment of the good law. He is the Namankaya, the aspiration to reach Bodhi, the transformation of the evolution of life. He is the Samokaya, the bliss of good deeds, the philosophers, scientists, poets of the future. The thinkers and dreamers of mankind will find in Amitabha a wonderful source of inspiration, which can never be exhausted. The Tathagata's religion is not mere metaphysics. His philosophy is not mere mythology. He allows metaphysics and mythology their spheres, but urges the practical issues of life. Thus, his religion compromises all without becoming vague, said the Brahman. How can so many contradictory things be united in one? And Ashvaghosha replied, my venerable teacher, the saintly sage Parsva once told me the parable of the elephant, which explains the relation of the truth to the sundry doctrines held by the several sects and schools, priests and philosophers, prophets and preachers. The Brahman said that he had never heard the story, had expressed his desire to hear it. And I can't help but think it's of the same sort that we encountered in, Sufi poetry. Of course, this came first, right?